We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Bobby. Bobby, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm probably going to leave halfway through your question and go get some water and a cough drop because I'm going to choke to death trying to do this podcast. And then no one, well, I won't say no one. Few people, well, I won't say few people. There's a contingency that would think that would be okay. Bobby is planning to upgrade to a couple of SVS subs over the next year, but he's concerned about disturbing the neighbors. I'm assuming he's in an apartment or a condo or something with a shared wall and not a separate house, but doesn't say that here, so no. So what are our thoughts on Audyssey LFC, which is Low Frequency Containment? Is it something we would recommend using? The addendum to that is, or will the SVS sound path isolation feed be enough to control bass transfer to the neighbors? So they must be sharing walls.
Yeah.
It's a tested sort of thing, honestly, dude. Obviously the sound path isolation feet will make a big difference because you won't get the direct transmission of sound through the floorboards, through the walls, as the sub is shaking, vibrating, all those things.
Well, that's if you were in a situation where the feet of the subwoofer would normally be in contact with a floor that isn't already damped in some way, say by having a very thick carpet pad on it or something to that effect. But the subwoofer normally, if it isn't one of the models that automatically comes with the isolation feet, by having those smaller feet, normally they will kind of crush almost any carpet to the point that you'll get some solid contact with whatever solid surface is underneath. So, I mean, the isolation feet, always a great idea. They'll never harm anything. At the worst they'll do is nothing because you already had it damped in some way. My approach to not bothering the neighbors is do everything you can. So damp it, try experimenting with nearer field placement, like actually having the subwoofers physically closer to you so that very first initial hit sounds louder to you, and maybe you don't have the desire then to turn it up quite as loud, as opposed to having them all the way across the room from you or something like that.
The best thing you can do really is just talk to your neighbors and say, listen, let's do some tests. You turn everything off like you're going to bed. I'm going to turn everything off like I'm watching a movie. I'm going to go and turn my movie. If you have a Harmony remote with RF, you can sit in their house and
That's true.
and volume up and just say, is that too loud? No, is that right? Is this too loud? Is this too loud? Is this too loud? And just keep going until they're like, we can hear this from the bedroom, or we can feel this, or something like that. And you're like, okay. And I would go back, I would see what that number was, and I would knock off 3 dB just to be safe. Just to take
but as
a little
for
bit
the
off the
Audyssey LFC, actually over at AVS Forum, someone finally measured the darn thing to actually figure out exactly what it's doing. And it's not doing anything particularly complicated. It's at its basis, it's just attenuating the bass. They give you three different settings. It attenuates it by, 15, 20, or 27 dB, I believe. But it's a little bit of a curve. So the lower the bass gets, so like closer and closer down to 20 hertz, the more it attenuates it in order to counteract room gain. So it's a bit of a curve, but it's basically attenuating the bass in greater amounts depending on what setting you use. That's starting up around 150 hertz. That's where it begins to roll off, and it's straight up just quieting down the bass. But what it does in addition to that is it actually adds in some harmonics above 250 hertz.
That's what they suggested when it first came out. Is that those harmonics are going to give you the sense that low bass
your
is
brain
still there.
goes, oh, the harmonics are there, so maybe the fundamental was there, because otherwise why am I hearing the harmonics? So it's a little bit of psychoacoustic trickery, but basically if you want to still feel a chest thump, that's not going to happen anymore, because that is simply a matter of physically moving air against you, and that has been attenuated. So you're not going to get that, but they do this little trick of adding in the harmonics that would have been there if the bass that they just quieted had still been there. So, yeah, like Tom says, though, essentially it's a thing to just try and see if it works for you. If you want the experience of feeling the bass, though, then LFC will take that away.
What I would also do, if you're doing these tests, instead of just doing the volume thing, to take the volume to where you want it to be in your home theater, then talk to your neighbors and see how they feel about that. They're like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Then you're good, right? The next step to me would be, you've already got the sound path isolation feed or whatever you're going to have on there. Then I would do the LFC.
Okay.
And see if that makes a big enough difference where you no longer have to have that reference volume or really close or as loud as you ever have it. Just really get it popping, and then hit the LFC and see what they feel, if they feel like that's enough. If not, then turn the LFC off and then bump it down a little bit. And if it gets to the point where in your home theater you're going, this is way too quiet, I'm never going to watch it this low.
Right.
Click the LFC back on and then see how they feel about it. Bump the volume up a little bit, click on the LFC, and then you might just figure out that you might have to use headphones at night or something, which would stink. But
one more thing that would be worth a try, though, is Audyssey Dynamic Volume. Again, it's available in different strengths. But what messing up my words. But what dynamic volume is doing is limiting the dynamic range so that explosions are not 10 times louder than people talking. So very often at night, that's a nice thing. And what is recommended is set it to the volume level that is comfortable for the dialogue, and then it will take care of anything that's louder than that. It won't let anything get louder than what's comfortable for dialogue. That's the way it's supposed to work. So by combining some dynamic range compression, possibly turning on LFC, having your subwoofers damped in their connection to the floor, you should be able to make this work in some combination.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.